As of July 20th, 2019, the Pennsylvania Department of Health now includes anxiety to the list of qualifying conditions for patients to be able to use medical cannabis. But what exactly does it mean to have anxiety? We all get anxious from time to time, and how does one go about getting a diagnosis to be able to get certified? Welcome to the Dispense Magazine podcast. I'm your host, Sven Hosford, and today I'll be talking with Sara Makin, a mental health professional in Pittsburgh. She'll outline just what it means to have anxiety, some of the different types of anxiety, and what you need to do to find out if you qualify for medical cannabis. In this podcast, she'll describe how cannabis is incorporated into her clinic's therapy plan for anxiety, PTSD, and other mental conditions, along with some of the other modern therapies that are demonstrating remarkable results. She's been on our podcast several times in the past because of how she has embraced medical cannabis and the services she provides to help people get access to it. Here's our conversation on anxiety. So we're speaking today with Sara Makin of Makin Wellness in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and also New Kensington. She runs a mental health clinic. And Sara, it's good to see you again.
It's so great seeing you too, Sven. I'm so excited to be on.
Yeah, you've been on several podcasts with us.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about Makin Wellness, what you specialize in.
Yeah, so we are premier therapy and coaching centers, and we specialize in holistic mental health and addiction treatment. We're able to do different evaluations, diagnose for different conditions, and provide ongoing treatment as well.
And you do the diagnosis for some of the conditions in the Pennsylvania medical marijuana law. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So currently we're able to evaluate and diagnose for all anxiety conditions, PTSD, opioid use disorder, and autism disorder.
Wow. So now when you say diagnose, how that's different from certification?
Oh, yeah. That it's definitely different. So with diagnosing, this is much different than a certification appointment. In order to get certified, you first need to have medical records stating your diagnosis. So many times people either don't have access to the records, misplace their records, don't feel comfortable asking for the records, or they're not given their records. So they come to see us, and we're able to evaluate virtually and also in our practices.
That is truly awesome. Now, you've been doing this with PTSD and opioid use disorder and autism, and now we've just added anxiety onto the qualifying conditions.
Yeah.
This is important, I think, because so many people have anxiety, but they've never actually seen a mental health professional. Is that true?
Oh, yeah. Anxiety is actually one of the most common mental health disorders in the U.S. Approximately 40 million adults have it, which is approximately 18.1% of the population.
So almost 1 out of 5 people walking around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's very common. And the other thing, too, is it's actually a very highly treatable condition, but only about 36.9% receive treatment. So this is one of the conditions that you are very likely to overcome it if you seek out help, but not too many people really understand or know what an anxiety disorder is. So that's why so many people don't.
Now, what are the traditional treatments for anxiety?
So some traditional treatments for anxiety are the psychoanalysis. There's also different kind of traditional talk therapies, SSRIs, so that's a specific type of medication.
And what do you do there that's a little bit different?
So our approach is very different. Our approach is, first off, extremely highly individualized. So it really is different from person to person based upon their interests and their lifestyle. So we have cognitive behavioral therapy, which is an evidence-based form of treatment, which basically means if you start to shape your thoughts and address your thoughts, you start to change your behaviors. So if someone has a habit of thinking very anxious or very worrisome thoughts, we help them think slightly less negative, slightly less nervous thoughts, and slightly more positive thoughts until that builds more momentum. We have really high-grade CBD oils. We have thought-field therapy as a part of the treatment as well, if the patient is open to it and wants to explore that as an option. We also, many times with anxiety, we have the patient completely cut out or significantly reduce the caffeine. Every time you drink caffeine, your body releases cortisol, which is a hormone that's released when you're stressed or anxious. So that's another thing that many people don't know about. They're having coffee every single day, and they think that this is something giving them energy, when in all actuality, it's making them anxious. We've had clients just cut out caffeine before and feel so much better. So that's another major part, and also making sure that they're eating well and that they're taking good self-care of themselves in whatever way they prefer, and also having the medical cannabis as part of the treatment as well.
You really are a very holistic type of clinic.
Oh, yes, very. Another great thing, too, is, for this ongoing counseling, we are networked with most major insurance companies, and with most of our contracts, we have the telepsych built in. So many times your insurance will still pay for this, which is really great.
Telepsych, so you can do your counseling over internet connection like we are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, like over a video or over the phone.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk about anxiety. That's why we have you on here today. Everyone has anxious moments. Everybody has anxiety about certain things. What makes it a diagnosable condition?
What makes it a diagnosable condition is when you feel like you can't really control your thoughts. You feel like your negative thoughts spiral out of control a lot, and if it's negatively affecting your life, whether it's in your career, at home, or just in your overall kind of happiness level.
Let's talk about some of the different kinds of anxiety. There's lots of different varieties. We hear all these terms all the time: social anxiety, performance anxiety.
Yeah.
What are some of the major ones that people have?
Okay, so generalized anxiety disorder is the most common anxiety disorder. So this affects 6.8 million adults, or about 3.1% of the U.S. population. Women are actually twice as likely to be affected as men, and many times GAD, or generalized anxiety disorder, will co-occur with major depression. Another very common anxiety disorder is panic disorder, or PD. So this affects about 6 million adults, or approximately 2.7% of the U.S. population. And again, women are twice as likely to be affected as men. There's also social anxiety disorder, which is another very common one. This affects 15 million adults, approximately 6.8% of the U.S. population. And this is SAD, or social anxiety disorder, is equally common with men as well as women, and this typically starts around age 13. So there's that. There's specific phobias.
So is the core of it then that your thoughts seem to be out of control and you're not in control of them? Is that really the core of anxiety?
It's out of control, negative, and worrisome and nervous thoughts. Many times if someone thinks what if, or thinks about things going the wrong way, or assuming the worst case scenario, or making a mountain out of a molehill, those types of things can all be considered anxiety.
Because, people, from my experience, people tend to, like you say, make a mountain out of a molehill. They're much more worried about what might happen rather than what actually does happen.
Yes.
Or what usually happens. But there certainly are people who are in stressful situations who deserve to be anxious because they're in a very dangerous or nerve-wracking situation. So both cases are true, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a real reason, and sometimes it's just all in our head.
Yeah, but even the perception of it can lead it to create anxiety, even if the reality is not present.
Yeah.
If in their mind something is real, then it is real.
And anxiety may produce other symptoms. There may be other symptoms of anxiety if you don't know that you're having anxiety, but is insomnia like a symptom of anxiety?
Oh yeah, insomnia, feeling like very sweaty or sweating a lot can also be a major symptom of it as well. Hypothyroidism can also be misconstrued as anxiety. And actually, for our assessments, it's one of the questions that we ask is, do you think your anxiety is caused by another medical condition? And sometimes that is the case.
That's my next question there is, what if anxiety can be a symptom of PTSD, for example, correct?
Mm-hmm. So when that occurs, that term is hypervigilance. So hypervigilance is anxiety that is as a result of you experiencing or observing a traumatic event. Yeah. And then that's when you feel very on guard or on edge or very easily startled.
Well, you're doing a great service helping these people, and I know your practice is booming, both from the good work that you do and from your work with cannabis. But somehow there's still, with a lot of people, there's still a stigma about seeking help from a mental health professional. Is there anything you would say to people who feel really weird about calling somebody for help?
That's a really great question. So what I would say is that if you're feeling upset, anxious, if you've gone through something traumatic, it is much more painful to hold on to that instead of reaching out for help. So reaching out for help might feel uncomfortable or weird, but the relief that you will more than likely obtain in the long run is going to definitely be worth it. If you think about it, if someone is out of shape, the first time they go to the gym, it's going to be very uncomfortable, but in the long run, they're going to have a healthier, more fit body.
Yeah, yeah. And overall, how has how do I want to ask this? Since you've embraced cannabis as a tool to use in conjunction, and that some of your clients are using, mm-hmm. How have you seen that as, how effective is that into helping people get to a more stable position with their situation?
It is, from what we've seen with our clients, it has been a really effective tool. A lot of it really has to do with the dispensary pharmacists and staff as well. Their input and their recommendations play a huge role in the treatment that our patients receive. So when we kind of coordinate care, it's really fantastic. One of the great things about medical cannabis is that it helps to increase the neuroplasticity in your brain. So that's basically your brain's ability to connect and create new neurons, which this naturally decreases when you hit 35 years old. So unless you're doing things on purpose to maintain neuroplasticity, it's automatically going to decrease. So when your brain is at a higher state of neuroplasticity, you're able to change and think differently more quickly. So just even that in of itself, the people respond to the treatment. People appear to respond to the treatment more quickly when they're using medical cannabis. And with the anxiety patients so far, we've noticed that it really helps with reducing the nervousness. It helps to mellow out our patients. It helps with increasing quality of sleep, and kind of even actually another really big difference we notice is that there's an decreased level of agitation or irritability as well, which is really fantastic. Yeah.
That's really amazing.
It is. It really is. And sometimes we get clients that come to see us because they heard about a friend or a colleague that have come here, and other times they specifically want a holistic approach. But either way, it's really amazing seeing all different types of people come in and really embrace a more natural kind of approach to their mental health has been really fantastic.
From what I've seen, just in general, and I'm sure you're seeing it in your practice, is that people who are open to holistic options are more open to cannabis, and people who are open to cannabis starting out are also more open to holistic conditions, which is certainly a win-win for you and for them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm encouraged too to hear how you say that the use of cannabis with these other things make those other things work better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's all complementary. And with your mental health and your happiness, it's never good to rely on just one thing to cope. It's good to have an arsenal of different tools and different things that you can implement to feel good. So it's been really wonderful having medical cannabis as a tool. And another thing I really want to make clear is that, with these mental health and addiction conditions, it's really important to keep in mind that medical cannabis is not supposed to be the only form of treatment. The Department of Health wants medical cannabis to be used in conjunction with effective treatment as well. So when the two are combined, it's really fantastic.
That is so good to hear. So good to hear. Well, any last thoughts that you want to talk about is related to anxiety and the state of Pennsylvania now accepting that as a qualifying condition?
I think it's a really fantastic thing, and I'm really excited about it because I know that this is already helping so many people. We've seen so many clients before that just simply did not qualify because they didn't have PTSD or opioid use disorder, but they've struggled with anxiety for years. So this has been a huge relief to so many people, and we are just really excited to continue to help more people heal and become happy again.
That's great to hear. Sara Makin of Makin Wellness, I'm sure it's been great talking to you today, and I'm sure we're going to talk to you again in the future.
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to. Thank you for having me on, Sven. This is wonderful as always.
You're so welcome. That's it for this episode of the Dispense Magazine podcast. You can find out more about Sara Makin at makinwellness.com, and you can hear more of our podcasts on PTSD and mental health on our website. If you are in a legal state and you'd like to find a certifying physician or dispensary near you, visit dispensemagazine.com and search our free online database. You can find copies of our print magazine in every Pennsylvania dispensary, as well as dozens of doctors' offices, holistic centers, and retail locations across the state. To find out where or to read a copy online, visit dispensemagazine.com. I'm Sven Hosford. Thanks for listening. This has been a production of Dispense Magazine, LLC.